So one more thing I wanted to bring up on the pre-buy subject, and this could go on for a long time, but just what kind of considerations or consulting do you do with a prospective buyer when they want to talk about all the things they want to do to that airplane once they own it, how that affects the decision of where this plane's going to go for a pre-buy? I mean, just as a quick example, if you have a top-notch maintenance avionics shop somewhere, but they don't do paint and interior, right, or great maintenance, but they do very little avionics work. I mean, yes, we do that all at our locations. How does that affect it? To set up the expectation of the owner when the guy says, I want to buy this plane, but I also want to do this paint, I want to do this. Mm-hmm. Your plane is taken apart at this point. Your shop matters, otherwise we're putting it back together and moving it to somewhere else. So talk about that process just for a second.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and something that does come up and something that does drive pre-buy locations. Mm-hmm. So if I'm buying an airplane that needs a panel in it, and the new owner plans to do that at the same shop visit, yep, then it's very likely that we're going to do the pre-buy inspection. We're going to come up with that list. We're going to agree that what the seller's going to pay for, and then we're going to go ahead and close on the airframe, so that we can transition from mm-hmm. the seller paid for seller squawk paid for process of a pre-buy into the new owner owning the aircraft, so that you guys can roll straight into a panel install because it's now the new owner's airplane.
Or an interior or something. Yeah. We've not gutted the plane until somebody says, I now own it.
So it's already gutted, so now's the time to put in a G1000 because part of the work's already done. So we might go to Stevens in Nashville for that pre-buy and that G1000 install. If they want paint and interior in the same process, we're probably going to Greenville because there's no paint and interior facility in Nashville. We're going to do the pre-buy there. And as soon as we close, then the interior shop starts ripping leather off the seats because they've already got the interior out. They just need to start the refurb process.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more to that, a consideration now, especially with the way things are with supply chain issues, is lead times. I mean, we're seeing in some instances 3-4 months before we can get equipment. And so if you're talking to your client and he wants to do certain things,
and wrap it up into one big bill, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we have to say, okay, well, let's
may not be able to.
That's right.
Let's consider that. Let's consider lead times and down times and trying to put everything together to keep that aircraft down as little as possible. We want to get the aircraft down and then get it back in the air so it can be operational. But lead times right now are this. We've talked a little bit about the industry changing and things being different. I'm having to remind myself that I'm dealing with issues now that I haven't had to talk about with my customers in the past. We haven't had really long lead times in the past like we do now. The tax issues and all these different things that we're doing now that we may have not had to discuss with guys in the past. It's a really interesting time. I'm really enjoying aviation right now because of it's
exciting.
It is. It's a different world.
And exciting.
It's a different world.
If we were getting bored before, we're no longer bored.
Well, I've fielded phone calls, especially at the end of the year, we're all getting those phone calls. We're looking for a facility to get this in, and most of that's tax driven. Mm-hmm. But to get phone calls from California, Washington, Alaska, to fly a plane completely across the United States, we've all been dealing with capacity issues in a good way. We're all working past what we normally have, and there's just no room. So this has got to be a big issue when prospective buyer comes up and says, I'd like to buy this plane. There's the plane. Now you got to find a shop. Yeah. And in this environment, that's got to be one of the rougher things you got on your table because they want to find it, pre-buy it, and get it done. And 3 years ago, pretty much drop it in anywhere you want because everybody had that little bit of wiggle room. Not a lot of wiggle room going on right now.
That's right. We have a PC-12NG in pre-buy right now that we closed on in December. We bought the airplane,
set some money aside,
closed on it, did a holdback in escrow, moved the airplane to the maintenance facility to do the inspection after the fact because we had to put it in service last year for tax purposes. So, and all the Pilatus shops in the whole country were completely full.
Yep.
Yeah, there's considerations that we're having to take or bear in mind now that are just unique, and so but I think it's going to be this way moving forward for a pretty good while.
It is. It's good challenges, but challenges still the same.
You got that.